For my lesson plan project, I really wanted to try out a few different tools that I had heard of before and maybe had tested out once or twice, but had never really spent the time to learn how to use them and how to learn to use them well. And the first one of those that I tried out was Nearpod. So I decided to start out this lesson with a flipped classroom approach, which was what we've talked about a good bit in class. Um, and I had thought a lot about, but was always a little too scared to test it out. My school is one-to-one technology. We do have flexible learning days, so that does make it a lot easier um, to do assignments like this because my students have such a great access to technology. But for this Nearpod, it's about environmental issues in Latin America, which is kind of the main focus of the final project. It starts out talking about Mexico City and also has a virtual tour. There's a few other interactive slides as we go along. One with an open-ended question. I have another virtual tour in here as well. I tried to do a variety of different activities to keep students entertained. I know it's a lot to ask them to go home and go through a 30-slide assignment and do those activities, so I wanted it to be something they would actually be interested in. Overall, it's pretty short. It's mostly a lot of pictures, but I'm just really trying to get them to think about the information. At the very end here, it actually sets up the assignment for the next day. If I skip ahead, so when they get into class the next day, they have a few discussion questions that they go over together, and then they start working on their next assignment, which is where they access the Amazon rainforest reading passage in Google Classroom through Kami. And their task for this is to read the passage and highlight in red why the Amazon rainforest is important. In green, they're going to find threats to the Amazon rainforest, and then in blue, they got to decide who or what is being impacted by this loss. This is the assignment in Kami that they were working on for the highlighting, which you just saw in the Nearpod. So this is a reading passage by ReadWorks. It's the Amazon rainforest, and again, they're asked to find specific parts and that's kind of annotate it and highlight in different colors. This will help them with their final project when they get to it. It kind of goes ahead and helps them identify some of the information they're going to include on their final project. Overall, I really liked using Kami. I did run into an issue where some of the better features are behind a paywall, so I use Google Classroom in my class, and I would have really liked to make this as an assignment for them to turn in. But I realized as they were working on it that they couldn't actually turn this in unless I had the paid subscription. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I was still able to see their work as they went through and highlighted, and we shared some of that in class. An example of what I mean, they would go through and they would highlight the different information. Like I said, this kind of just helps them later on, so it just kind of scaffolds the final activity for them. For their final assignment, they were asked to make an Amazon rainforest public service announcement. Then they use Canva to do that. It says, create a PSA poster that informs the public about the issue of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. You will explain what deforestation is and how it is impacting the Amazon, and you will then choose an animal that is native to the Amazon rainforest and explain how that animal's habitat is being impacted by deforestation. So I added this little checklist for them because it's a lot of information to include on one poster. So this allows them to go through, and as they complete a section, they can check that off on the checklist. I use this for a lot of my students that need a little extra help, but I think it kind of works for all students in the class too. The directions say not to include student samples, but I thought it was kind of difficult to understand what I was expecting students to create without showing the examples, so all of this has been de-identified. There's no identifying information on here for the students. But I have a few different examples that I was especially proud of how hard they worked on it. They just got very creative with it. I had very few that even looked similar to each other. Some of the information was the same, but they kind of got to make it a little bit more unique by picking which animal they wanted to focus on. But overall, I was really proud of how well they worked on this. I attached the rubric for this assignment to their Google Classroom assignment. It's a pretty basic rubric, just kind of goes through the exact same things that were on the checklist. I didn't want them to be surprised by any extra information that they were supposed to include, so it really goes exactly along with that checklist. Another interesting information I found out as I was doing this assignment is that Canva connects directly with Google Classroom, and that was really easy to create an assignment on Canva through Google Classroom and then have the rubric attached as well. It just made the whole turning in and grading process a lot easier.